And what I know is that we are not here by chance, we are here by divine appointment. Those in our viewing audience who have just tuned in, we welcome you, we open the space, and we know there is something for each of us here today. The theme for the month has been the power is within you, the power within us. Today we're looking at the power of the mind, and we think, well, you know, this whole power of the mind thing, I mean, we've heard so much about it, but the truth is it's the foundation of our lives, that the power is within us. The power of the mind allows us to discern energetically what it is that we're going to open ourselves up to in this lifetime. What experience that we truly want in this lifetime. I know that the only thing that we're going to take with us is our consciousness. And all the other wonderful things, you know, we leave to others and we move on in the light. But while we are here to live and move and have our being in that one, and to have a spiritual experience in the physical world, the world of conditions, appearances, and effects. And as we look at the power of the mind, Jesus, who became the Christ, you know, his name was not Jesus Christ, he was Jesus of Nazareth. As he evolved, as his consciousness was unfolding, he became the Christ. And he said to his disciples, "Who do you think I am?" And one said, "Well, you know, I think you're this person over here, you know, from the Old Testament that, you know, arose in the chariot. I think you're this one." And they believed in reincarnation. It was so interesting that they thought he was all these different people. And Peter said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus turned and said, "Flesh and blood hath not revealed this to you, Peter Bar-Jonah, but the Spirit of God within you." That energetically, and if we can look at energy and feel energy, we know when we are in the presence of mastery. We know that when we are in the presence of love. We know that when we are in the presence of that unconditional, non-judgment space, we feel it. We are wafted up in that energy field. This week, you know, I had the honor of being at the Maryland statue with the mayor and all, with great festivity that when the gay rights marriage bill passed, and there was really, it seemed like hundreds of people were there, and their signs, and they were cheering. And they were there weeping. And the mayor said, the first thing I did at 7 a.m. this morning is I called my partner who is in another state on business. And we wept together on the phone. We were so joyous that we are being recognized, that we are unfolding in this truth of equality, that yes, all men and women are created equal, that we have the pursuit of happiness, that energetically we truly are one. And as I stood in this great, wonderful crowd of energy, there was love, there was gratitude, there were tears. And then the mayor said, and he turned to me, I had given the invocation for a City Hall meeting the Wednesday before. And he turned and he said, "And we also thank our straight allies." And I said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Because when I was awarded the Human Rights Award at Palm Springs, which I've been awarded a lot of things. When you're almost 70, you know, if you live long enough, you get all the awards. And interestingly enough, that is the one I value the most, because I have taken a stand in equality and oneness and acknowledged that our God is a God of oneness. This is how it is. We are all one in the mind of God. That energy flows through each of us. And when we understand that, then there is no judgment. There's no looking outside of ourselves. I happen to be in Palm Springs this week, and I have somebody who's emailing me every time we send something out. You know, he sends some sniperism out at me, and somehow I'm not in his favor. And I ran into him out in the community. Anyway, you know, You know how uncomfortable that is. And I just embraced him, and I said, it's so wonderful to see you. And I looked and I saw that Christ presence within him. And I embraced the Christ energy within him. And I just thought, whatever is going on with this person, it has nothing to do with me. See, we take it on. We take stuff personally, don't we? We say, how dare him say that about me? I've worked so hard in this movement, and I'm, always working on myself. And we take things personally. But when we draw the larger circle and just realize that everyone is coming from whatever space they're coming from, it's only the truth if we have an energy charge on it. We have more work to do. And when we have more work to do, we go within to the secret place of the Most High to pray to our Father, Mother, God in secret, to know that we will be acknowledged openly. We all have residue. We all have stuff that bubbles up so that we can look at it and let it go, release it to its native nothingness from whence it came. And as I embraced him, he said, you look so radiant. And he said, wow, you came through. I had major surgery in April. And he said, you came through that so magnificently, and you're so radiant. And I said, thank you so much. And it's just wonderful to see you. And then I went about my way. And I thought, girl, you have grown. Because there was a time in my ministry I'd have seen somebody at the market and I would have gone down the other aisle. So I didn't have to face them. However, we're all one. So what someone is expressing, what is it? Doesn't the Course in Miracles state, every loving thought is true and everything else is a call for healing or help, regardless of the form it takes? So it's a call for help. So some attention, if it's negative, is better than no attention. We see children acting out all the time. And when we greet the situation with the heart and mind of Christ consciousness, the Buddha nature, the holy I Am presence, it dissipates, it disappears in the natural process of life itself, returns to its native nothingness. What the mind of man and woman can conceive and believe, the mind of man and woman can achieve. And it's not about princes, palaces, and parking places, necessarily. It's about our wisdom, the inner essence that flows, and everyone in the energy field is touched by this. In my Thursday night class, it's called Creating Money, Keys to Abundance. But it's really about energy, and that everything in the universe is energy. And it talks about visualizing within the heart center a coil, and that this coil, this beautiful silver coil, is going out, and it's touching everyone in our energy field, everyone in the universe. And that when we feel that oneness, and we really know we've grown and can gauge that growth by the number of times we react to the people in the outer world. When Gandhi was asked, what do you think of Christianity? He said, I think it would be a very good idea. And they said, what do you mean? He said, I haven't really seen it demonstrated yet. Think about it.
Yeah, that's good.
So the ground of being of Christianity is love one another as I have loved you. Love thy neighbor as thyself. That's the ground of being of Christianity. And if we look at all the great religions of the world, the golden thread is love and oneness and embracing each other. That's the golden thread. There's fanatics in every single world religion. There's fanaticism. But the teaching, the purity of the teaching, and if we go to the founders of the teaching, it's a God thing. It's an energy thing. It's a golden thread that links each and every one of us as that oneness, and that we live from that space. I saw Joan Borsenko, who's an amazing author. She wrote Fire in the Soul. She wrote Fried, How to Revive Ourselves from Burnout. She's written about really several books that are fantastic. And she was interviewed, and she said, when I was 10 years old, I had a stress-related syndrome. My parents moved, and it's not like we moved from Boston to New York. It was like we moved 10 minutes down the road, but it was a different school zone. And she said, I developed obsessive compulsive syndrome. And my rituals were I would turn a glass of water 3 times to the right and then to the left before I drank out of it. And she said, I had seen a horror movie, and all of those images came back to me, and I thought that my family will be destroyed if I don't do these certain things. And my parents, she said this was like 50 years ago. She said they took me to a psychiatrist, and they didn't know what to do. And she said, then one day at 10 years old, I decided, and she was from Judaism, and she said my parents weren't particularly prayerful at all. There was no prayers in the house. I decided to pray at 10 years old. And I prayed for 3 days, and in 3 days, and she said, you know, I could only read if I turned the book upside down and read it backwards. That's how advanced the obsessive compulsive syndrome was. And in 3 days, you know, it's like destroy this house and in 3 days I will build it up again. In 3 days, it left me. I prayed. Now, she said, I'm a scientist. I was a neuroscientist for all those years. I got my degrees in psychology. Wayne Dyer said that she's the smartest woman he's ever met. She has 5 PhDs. And it's amazing because in all her books, she has so much heart energy in her books. And she said, I went from a neuroscientist to a psychologist when my father, who had cancer and was treated like a number and a non-entity, jumped from his 36-story building down to the ground and killed himself. And she said, I realized that there was no empathic listening. And I went to a doctor one time and I could see the doctor had burnout. She said, I waited in the outer room, and she said, it was winter, but she had the temperature way up in the 90s. I went into her room, and I sat there, and she had this sweater on, and she didn't even look up. She was just picking the woolen balls off her sweater. And she said, I began to tell her that I'd pulled a muscle in my back, that I was a yoga teacher, and that I was, you know, working on my PhD, and I was schlepping children, and this persistent pain. Should I keep teaching yoga? What should I do? And at that moment, the doctor lifted her head and said, wait a minute, you may have cancer. And she said, I had done cellular biology in cancer research. I knew intuitively that I did not have cancer. And that this woman who was so burned out and who couldn't even look up and give energy to her patient, you know, we needed to exchange chairs. And I needed to listen to her. And what was so fascinating about that experience is that she changed her major and she became a psychologist so that she could listen empathically to the people that came in and open her heart up. And that at 10 years old, she realized that it's not about empirical knowledge of something. As the scientists, they can't really explain prayer. But now, in research, in amazing neural research, there is the observer effect. And those that are doing heart math up in Northern California can connect us to an electrode and see this graph that when we feel certain energy and emotions, the graph will go up. And as we feel the energy of love, love is the strongest healing power in the universe. And as we get ourselves into that love vibration, everything in the outer world begins to respond to that. The observer effect of recognizing that love is the strongest healing power in the universe. Yes, we really can't measure it in terms of measurement, but now science has created these graphs that show a response to the loving, amazing feeling. There's a great story that I love, and it's a Zen fable, and it's about he was a farmer, and he was tending his crops, and one day, you know, his son put the horse in, and the corral was open, and the horse ran out, and one of the neighbors said, how unfortunate, how sad that you lost your horse. And so the old farmer said, well, maybe. And what happened was that the horse came back the next day and brought kind of a herd of horses, wild horses, out into the field, and the neighbor said, how fortunate, how wonderful that your horse that escaped came back and brought all these horses. And the old farmer said, "Oh, is that so? Maybe." And then one day his son was out and he was going to ride one of the horses and break it for riding. And the horse threw him and he fell and broke his leg. And the neighbor said, "How unfortunate that your son was thrown from the horse and broke his leg." And the old farmer said, "Well, maybe. Is that so?" And just kind of was with that energy. And the next day, the military army of the nation came and they were getting drafting all the young men to the army. And when they came to the farmer's house, the young man had a broken leg and could not be drafted. And the neighbor came and said, "How fortunate that your son, he couldn't be drafted into the military." And the old farmer said, "Is that so? Maybe." And I love that because when we judge each experience as good or bad, and we put a judgment on it, we lock it in. We lock the energy in. When we say things like, "This is such a problem," we lock it in. When we tell others our problems, we lock it in and they see us as that. But when we say, "Oh, is that so? Maybe," and maybe not, we open the space for a universal energy to come in and to shift it in the twinkling of an eye. A 10-year-old girl with obsessive-compulsive syndrome prays. In 3 days, she's healed. She goes on to be an amazing author and healer of so many people. When we judge anything in our lives as bad or even good, it's interesting how then when the next thing happens, we don't quite grasp it and we think, I'll just be so glad when this is over. This relationship has been such a mistake. And I always tell my students, no relationship is a mistake. That's what we needed to learn at that moment so that we could move on with grace and ease and love. That we needed to learn certain things, and we create the people, places, and things in our life. Because that's what the mind does. The mind recreates at every moment. And as we open our minds and our hearts, and we feel the energy of life flowing in, and we recognize that, when we're out and about, there might be someone there that has a call for help, and it isn't exactly in the form that we would like it because it looks like it's directed negatively at us, and it's only ours if we own it, if we react to it. What the mind of man and woman can conceive and believe, the mind of man and woman can achieve and open ourselves up to in a much greater way because it's about spiritual essence. So the power is within you. Did you know that? The power is within you. Where is it? It's within us. It's within us. And as we acknowledge that God is our source and that we are going higher, the universe responds to that declaration. And where are we going? Higher yet. Where? Higher yet. We are going higher yet. This is the truth for us and with us. And it's an honor and a privilege to be with you. It's an honor and a privilege to do this work. And I am so grateful for our community, our conscious community. God bless you. I love you.